Mm. Okay, here we go, getting started again. Um, so something I have been noticing as I look at my analytics from the past couple of weeks is that the streams that I do, where we are specifically focused on getting some short stories developed and then reading them, do much better than the streams where we're more focused on building the world and concerning ourselves with our long form story ideas. So I think we're going to be going in a new direction where instead of trying to build a more comprehensive world, we're just going to do some quick and dirty world building and then start developing some stories for all kinds of different genres, because that's honestly the Forever Adventure Library YouTube was originally created as part of the Forever Adventure Library Discord project, where we're looking to build a library of cooperatively written choose your own adventure books. And so that's really more of the spirit of it, is to do a lot of different stuff, experience a lot of different stories, explore as many worlds as we possibly can. So we're going to be focusing a lot more on that from this point forward. So I guess the first thing we're going to need to do is do a quick little bit of world building. We'll need to determine a genre that we want to do this story in. Um, Inside of that genre, maybe a time period, depending on what the genre is. And then we'll start spitting out a little story and refining it so that we can get, just some really interesting stuff going on. Maybe get a couple of characters in there, just have some fun. So, um, what could be something interesting? The last time we did a stream like this, we did the new books for the Forever Adventure Library that we started. And that we did a sci-fi um, sort of faster than light time travel theme. And then we did a children's book that was going to be about a group of four um, kids, teenagers, who were going to investigate some crimes. It was going to be like a children's mystery thing. So maybe we'll stay away from the sci-fi and the mystery. Most of what we've done previously has been fantasy driven. So maybe let's stick away from that. So what else could we have in the fiction realm? Um, hmm. Well, let's just look up fiction genres. Fiction genre list. Fables, fairy tales, fantasy, fiction, fiction verse, folklore, historical fiction. Ooh, historical fiction could be fun. Poke a little fun at um, horror could be fun. Ooh, using using some existing stuff like doing historical fiction or mythology could have some fun because there's a lot of existing lore to pull from there. And so the AI is going to have a lot to draw from and a lot of structure to build onto. Let's do some mythology. I really like that idea. Let's tell some stories, some fictional stories about characters in Greek mythology. Characters in Greek. I need to spell it with a capital. That's why that's happening. Greek mythology. Who are some characters we could write stories about? Some popular characters in Greek mythology that you could write stories about include Zeus, the king of the gods and ruler of the sky, Poseidon, the god of the sea and earthquakes. I didn't know that he was the god of earthquakes. Hades, the god of the underworld, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy, Artemis, the goddess of hunting and wilderness, Hermes, the messenger of the gods and patron of thieves, Ares, the god of war, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, Dionysus, the god of wine and fertility, Theseus, the mortal prince of Athens who became a hero, Perseus, the mortal prince who slays the Gorgon Medusa, Heracles, also known as Hercules, the mortal prince who performs the labors, Jason, the mortal prince who leads the Argonauts on a quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece, and Odysseus, the mortal king who goes on a long journey home after the Trojan War. This is the Odyssey, obviously. Let's see. What characters can we mash into something here? Hades, the god of the underworld. He's a fun guy. Let's put him in here. And then Apollo, the god of music and poetry. That's a nice little opposition, right? The god of music and poetry and the god of the underworld. Couldn't be two more opposite characters in Greek mythology. So, let's see. What could our story be about? Tell me a story of Hades and Hermes having a confrontation about confrontation about the future of Greece. Let's see. Once Hades and Hermes had a great confrontation about the future of Greece. Hades, the ruler of the underworld, had grown tired of the moral world and the constant bickering and fighting among the Greeks. He believed that the best course of action would be for the gods to withdraw their support from the mortals and let them fend for themselves. Hermes, the messenger of gods and patron of thieves, saw things differently. He believed that the gods had a duty to guide and protect the mortals, and that they should continue to intervene in the affairs of Greece. The two gods argued fiercely, with Hades insisting the mortals were beyond redemption, and Hermes arguing that they were capable of greatness and if given the proper guidance. In the end, it was Zeus, the king of the gods, who settled the dispute. He declared that the gods would continue to watch over and guide the mortals, but that they would also give them the freedom to make their own choices and determine their own fate. Hades reluctantly accepted this decision, but Hermes felt vindicated. He knew that the mortals, with the help of the gods, would be able to build a great future for Greece. And so the gods continued to watch over the mortals, helping them when needed and standing back when necessary, but always keeping an eye on their welfare and the future of their beloved Greece. I don't like the way that story came out. Include dialogue. I would like to see, I don't know how to spell dialogue, but it doesn't matter. I would like to see how the actual interaction plays out. Once upon a time, in the land of the gods, Hades and Hermes had a confrontation about the future of Greece. Hades, the god of the underworld, had grown tired of watching Greece from afar and wanted to take a more active role in shaping its future. Hermes, the messenger of gods, had always been a strong supporter of the mortal world and was not pleased with Hades' intentions. Hades, Hermes, my old friend, I've been thinking about Greece and its future. I believe it's time for me to take a more active role in shaping its destiny. Hermes, Hades, I understand your concern, but the mortal world is not for us to intervene with. We are here to guide them, not control them. Hades, but you know as well as I do that Greece is on the brink of collapse. The people are plagued by war, poverty, and disease. I can help them. Hermes, I can bring them prosperity and peace. Hermes, Hades, you speak of peace, but you cannot bring it through force. The people of Greece must find their own way. They have the power to shape their own future. Hades, you're right, Hermes. I've been so focused on my own desires that I've lost sight of what's truly important. I will not interfere with Greece's fate. I will watch over the dead and guide the souls of the departed. Hermes, that is the wisdom I've come to expect from you, Hades. I'm glad we had this talk. And with that, Hades and Hermes parted ways, both understanding the importance of respecting the free will of the mortal world. Greece's future would be decided by the actions of its people, not the intervention of the gods. This has got a very fable feel to it, right? Like this whole thing's got a very, very pointed um, moral tilt to it, which is really just hilarious to me. Um, I really don't like how these stories are turning out. We need to try. There's there's a very subtle way, and it's dependent on what prompt you're looking for and what the ultimate goal of your story is. But as you build your prompt, you have to keep reworking it until you can get a story like we had in the first one with dialogue like we had in this one, right? We don't just want dialogue and we don't just want this list of story. We want the characters to talk to each other within the story. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get the AI to do it. Um, what if we put, tell me a story of Hermes confronting Hades about his involvement with the Greeks. But this is Hermes, the messenger of the god, was known for his quick wit and cunning. He was not one to be trifled with, and he was especially protective of the Greeks, who were his mortal charges. One day Hermes heard a rumor that Hades, the god of the underworld, was meddling in the affairs of the Greeks. He could not believe that his brother would be so foolish as to provoke the wrath of the Olympians, and he decided to confront Hades directly. Hermes descended into the depths of the underworld, where he found Hades sitting on his throne, surrounded by his dark and ominous subjects. Hermes approached Hades with a stern look on his face and said, "Brother, I have heard that you have been meddling in the affairs of the Greeks. I must know the truth of this matter." Hades looked up at Hermes and sneered, "I do as I please, little brother. The Greeks are nothing to me." Hermes was not so easily intimidated. "You forget, brother, that the Greeks are under the protection of the Olympians. If you harm them, you will face the wrath of Zeus himself." Hades laughed. "You think that Zeus cares about a bunch of mortals? He is too busy with his own affairs to pay attention to them." Hermes knew that Hades was right, and he realized that he would have to take matters into his own hands. He thought quickly, and a plan formed in his mind. "Very well, brother. If the Greeks are nothing to you, then I will make them something. I will make them heroes, and their deeds will be celebrated for all eternity. And when they are, you will regret ever crossing me." With that, Hermes turned and left the underworld, his mind racing with the ideas for how to make the Greeks into heroes. Hades watched him go, feeling a sense of unease. He knew that he had underestimated Hermes, and he knew that he would regret it. And so, through the cunning and wit of Hermes, the Greeks became heroes, their deeds celebrated for all eternity, and Hades knew that he had indeed crossed the messenger of the gods, and he was well aware of the price that he had to pay for his interference. And this is what we're really looking for, right? The ending two paragraphs are a little meh because the AI has this sort of weird need um, to close things out completely. And so sometimes you get these really, really brief end paragraphs that sum everything up real quick. But the rest of this was just a fantastic story and could fall right into the Greek mythology. I really, really like that. And I think um, tell a story of Hermes. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? What I want is a story about Hermes helping one of these heroes to become a hero. Not mentoring. Oh, what's the word? Tell me a story of Hermes. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm going to look for mentoring synonyms. Synonym for mentor. Guiding, tutoring, fostering. There we go. Cultivating, instructing, teaching, forming, nurturing. Nurturing, I think, is the word. Tell a story of Hermes nurturing one of these heroes. Do not use a known hero. Let's see what I can come up with. Once upon a time, there was a young mortal named Tithonus. He was a humble shepherd living in a small village on the outskirts of ancient Greece. Despite his humble beginnings, Tithonus had a heart of gold and a fierce determination to make something of himself. One day, while out tending to his sheep, Tithonus stumbled upon a group of bandits attempting to rob a nearby temple. Without hesitation, Tithonus charged towards the bandits. Armed only with his trusty staff, despite being outnumbered, Tithonus managed to fend off the bandits and save the temple. News of Tithonus's bravery quickly spread through the land, and it reached the ears of Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Impressed by Tithonus's courage and selflessness, not selfishness, Hermes decided to take Tithonus under his wing and nurture him into a true hero. Hermes began visiting Tithonus in secret, teaching him the ways of combat, strategy, and cunning. Tithonus was a quick learner, and he soon surpassed even his mentor's expectations. With Hermes' guidance, Tithonus embarked on a series of adventures. He battled monsters, saved damsels in distress, and even defeated an army of invaders single-handedly. His deeds were celebrated throughout Greece, and Tithonus became known as the greatest hero of his time. Thanks to Hermes' guidance, Tithonus' name went down in history, and he became a legend. He was honored by the gods and remembered by the mortals as one of the greatest heroes to ever live. Tithonus knew that it was all thanks to the guidance of Hermes, the messenger of the gods. This is really interesting. So it's sort of like the opportunity to create a whole new Hercules character. Um, so let's now have a story about one of these adventures that he embarked on. So tell me a story of Tithonus saving a damsel in distress. Because honestly, who doesn't like a good damsel in distress story? Let's see what ChatGPT's got for us. Tithonus, the young mortal hero, was on a journey to a nearby kingdom to help fight against the ruthless warlord who was terrorizing the land. As he was traveling through the forest, he came across a beautiful maiden who was tied up and trapped in a cage by bandits. Without hesitation, Tithonus charged towards the bandits. That's apparently a running theme with Tithonus, just charging towards people. His sword drawn and ready for battle, the bandits who were caught off guard were quickly defeated by Tithonus' skill and bravery. The maiden, whose name was Eurydice, was overjoyed to be rescued and thanked Tithonus profusely. She explained that she was the daughter of the king of that kingdom, and the bandits had kidnapped her for ransom. Tithonus, who was on his way to help the kingdom, decided to escort Eurydice back to her father's palace. As they journeyed together, Tithonus and Eurydice grew closer. Eurydice was impressed by Tithonus' courage and selflessness, and Tithonus couldn't help but be drawn to Eurydice's beauty and kindness. When they finally reached the palace, Eurydice's father was overjoyed to see his daughter safe and sound. He thanked Tithonus and offered him a place in his kingdom as a protector and a friend. Tithonus, who was on a mission to help the kingdom, accepted the offer and decided to stay. Eurydice, who had grown to love Tithonus, asked him to stay too. Tithonus couldn't deny his feelings for her and decided to stay with her. Together they helped the kingdom to defeat the warlord and bring peace to the land. Tithonus and Eurydice's love story was remembered for generations to come. It was celebrated as one of the greatest love stories of all time. Tithonus' name went down in history as a hero who saved a damsel in distress and found true love. I do not like this story, the way it's written. It's too fast, and it is something that the AI does a lot, is it wants to rush through every bit of a story. So if you give it something broad like this, and I should have crafted this better, tell me a story of Tithonus's fight to save a captured maiden. So if we just try and relegate it to the fight, perhaps we'll get a little dialogue with the bandits. All the best anime start with a girl in a box. That's the truth. But maybe if we just use this word fight, perhaps we will get what we're looking for. Tithonus, now a renowned hero, received word that a beautiful maiden by the name of Eurydice had been kidnapped by a band of ruthless raiders. They demanded a large ransom for her wealth from her wealthy family, but Tithonus knew that he could not simply sit idly by and wait for her to be rescued. He was determined to save her himself. He set out on his journey, bringing nothing but his courage, his wits, and his trusty sword. He traveled through treacherous mountains, scorching deserts, and stormy seas, determined to rescue Eurydice at all costs. I don't know why he has to travel so far to find bandits. What sort of bandits travel across mountains, deserts, and seas to go kidnap somebody? Oh, that's good stuff. Finally, after many long weeks of travel, Tithonus arrived at the stronghold of the raiders. It was a formidable fortress, surrounded by high walls and guarded by fierce warriors, but Tithonus was not deterred. He snuck into the stronghold under the cover of darkness and made his way to the tower where Eurydice was being held. He found her locked in a cell, and she was overjoyed to see him. Tithonus quickly unlocked the cell, and they made their escape. However, they were quickly discovered, and a fierce battle ensued. Tithonus fought bravely, his sword flashing in the moonlight as he battled the raiders. But despite his skill and determination, he was outnumbered and outmatched. Just as all seemed lost, Hermes, who had been watching over Tithonus, intervened. He swooped down from the heavens, wielding his caduceus? I don't know what that word is. I might have to look that up. And drove the raiders back. Together, Tithonus and Hermes fought their way out of the stronghold and made their escape. Eurydice was safely returned to her family, and Tithonus was hailed as a hero once again. He had rescued the maiden and saved her from the clutches of her kidnappers. His deeds were celebrated throughout Greece, and his name went down in history as one of the greatest heroes to ever live. This is, again, a really great story. A lot of it is about managing scope. There is a pretty strict limit, and honestly, about as long as this story is about as long as the AI is ever going to write a story for you. And so the AI is going to attempt to complete everything that it thinks you want out of the story within this amount of words. So the more you control the scope of what the story is going to be talking about, the more detail you're going to get, and so ultimately the more interesting the story. Because when you're telling a really long story in a very short number of words, there's a limit to the amount of creativity you can have, but the AI still wants to have that creativity, so it's going to start looking for all kinds of different things to add in. And you can see in the early paragraphs of this, before he actually arrives, you see a lot of that, right? He's going through all these different places: scorching deserts, storming seas, blah 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 blah. You've got all of this upfront information, and it's trying to be as creative and diverse as it can, and so it ends up bogging itself down in just a lot of stuff. There's, he can't just be crossing a desert, right? It could have created a desert and tried to, tell about how he had to go on a harrowing journey across whatever desert. But that doesn't include enough different things in the AI's mind. And so it tries to throw a bunch of different things in. And so you end up with just really cluttered stories. But if you focus the scope of what the story is going to be about, you end up getting a lot better detail, like this in here about him going and unlocking the cell and then having to fight. The flashing in the moonlight, that's a wonderful little tidbit. And while this isn't really a publishable story, it's absolutely sufficient for just having a little fun and reading something about Tithonus and Hermes. Now, the one thing I do need to do is I want to look up this caduceus. I want to know what this is.
Caduceus. Caduceus.
Caduceus. Okay. An ancient Greek or Roman herald's wand, typically one with two serpents intertwined around it, carried by the messenger god Hermes or Mercury. Okay. So this is the um it's now used as like a symbol for um hospitals and stuff, isn't it? Yeah, okay, a representation of this traditionally associated with healing. Got it. Caduceus. Interesting. Learn something new every day. All right. That was a fun little series of stories, and I'd like to stick with the Greek mythology theme. And so, who else could we have a story about? Athena, the goddess of wisdom. How did I get Hermes and Apollo mixed up? When we first started this, I was talking about trying to do these stories with Apollo. I don't know how I got the two of them mixed up, but whatever. It ended up being fun to have Hermes in there. It's also weird that Hermes, the patron of thieves, was the the patron of a hero. But sure, why not? That's fun. J42, do you have a favorite god or goddess from the Greek pantheon? Hmm. Might not be listening. I'm going to type this into the chat here. Oh, well, never mind. There you are. Don't think so. Okay. Well, if you decide that you have a favorite, let me know. I've got a fun little thing that I'd like to try. Um, and then you can play. I've I've worked something out to where you can get the AI to prompt you in a conversation so that it expects you to play one of the characters. So we'll get it to write a story about a couple of the characters, and you could just play one of them, and I'll get it to prompt, and then I'll wait for you to tell me what you want it to say, and then we'll have a little chit chat with the AI. So it'll go a little something like this, so you can get a better idea. Um, Tell me a story about um Apollo happening upon hmm. Actually, let's go. Tell me a story about Athena happening upon Apollo in the woods. I would like to play the part of Apollo. So when you get to a part where Apollo needs to speak or act, prompt me to write. Okay, this should work. Sometimes it's a little touchy and you've got to finagle your prompt a little bit to get the AI to prompt you, and especially if you want to continue the story with the prompting, sometimes it doesn't like it so much, but we're going to see. Once upon a time, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, was wandering through the woods when she stumbled upon Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy. He was deep in thought, seated on a rock, with his lyre in his hand. Athena approached him and asked, Apollo, what are you doing here all alone in the woods? Is everything all right? Okay, so it's not prompting. Maybe if I break it like this, I would like to play the part of Penelope. Let's do not write Apollo's part when you need Apollo to say or do something. Prompt me to write. Let's try again. Maybe if I actually capitalize and spell Apollo right, it'll work better. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, was wandering through the woods one day when she stumbled upon Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy. He was sitting on a rock, strumming his lyre and singing a beautiful song. Athena was intrigued by the melody and walked closer to listen. As she approached, Apollo looked up and saw her. He stopped playing and greeting her warmly. Darn it! Don't write for Apollo. Instead, prompt me to continue. I would love to hear more of your song, Apollo. Please continue playing and singing. All right, AI. What are you doing to me here? I know this works. I've done this before. Instead of tell me a story, let's tell a story together of Athena happening upon Apollo in the woods. You will be Athena. Do not write Apollo's part. Okay, let's see if that works. It's a little more descriptive. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, was wandering through the woods one day when she happened upon Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy. She had heard rumors of his musical talents and was curious to see if they were true. As she approached him, she could hear the sweet sound of his lyre and the melodic words of his poetry. She was impressed and decided, okay, well, that almost worked. Prompt me to write and stop writing. Okay, I can feel it. This is going to be the one. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, was wandering through the woods one day when she stumbled upon Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy. He was playing his lyre and singing a beautiful song. Athena was intrigued and approached him. Hello, Apollo. I couldn't help but hear your beautiful singing. May I join you? Apollo looked up and saw... Ah, you just did it right. What happened? You will play Athena. Do not write Apollo's part. You will play Athena. I will play Apollo. When you get to a point where Apollo needs to speak, prompt me and stop. We're going to get it. I swear we're going to get it. I really enjoy this. I've only ever done it one time before, but it's a lot of fun. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, was wandering through the forest one day. She was deep in thought, pondering the many problems that plagued the mortals she had been tasked with protecting. Suddenly she heard the sound of a lyre being played. It was a beautiful melody, full of longing and sorrow. Curious, Athena followed the sound until she came upon a clearing. There she saw Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy, sitting on a rock. He was playing his lyre and singing a song of love and loss. He was so absorbed in his music that he didn't notice Athena's arrival. Athena was struck by the beauty of Apollo's song and the passion with which he played. She approached him and said, "Apollo, your music is truly divine. What is the story behind this song?" Hey, at this point you can take over, Apollo, and continue the story. How wonderful, it did it. Excellent. So we're going to say Apollo stopped playing and turned. Ah, sister, how nice to see you. What is the story behind this song? I was just remembering a long-lost love, and my heart and hands could not be contained. And turn. Okay, excellent. Now I'm going to go down here, copy this in, and then I'm going to say continue as Athena. I will play Apollo. Blah, blah, blah. So we get to punch in our little bit from Apollo here. And let's see. So Apollo stopped playing and turned. Ah, sister, how nice to see you. I was just remembering a long-lost love, and my heart and hands could not be contained. Athena nodded, understanding the power of love and the pain of loss. Your music is truly moving, Apollo. It is clear. Oh, now you've gone and done it again. Okay. Well, maybe if we copy the entirety of this and put it in here. Save and submit. Now we'll try. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, was one. Nope. How about let's continue the story together. You will play Athena, I will play Apollo. We're going to get it. Athena listened with interest as Apollo spoke of his lost love. She could see the sadness in his eyes and the pain in his voice. She knew that as a god he was immortal and would not experience death, but the pain of lost love is eternal. I understand, Apollo. Gosh darn it. What was it about this previous prompt that got it prompt me when Apollo speaks? Maybe saying it twice will reinforce. Nope. Please continue to prompt me. when Apollo speaks. Athena listened with interest as Apollo spoke of his mortal love. A prophetess, she could see she could see the pain and longing in his eyes as he spoke of her, and felt a twinge of empathy. Still thinking. We'll see what happens. Hmm. Athena listened intently as Apollo told the story of his lost love. He spoke of how he had met her and how she had been the only one who truly understood and appreciated his music. He spoke of how he had loved her with all his heart, but how she had eventually chosen to leave him for a mortal man. As Apollo spoke, Athena could see the pain in his eyes and hear it in his voice. She knew that he was still deeply hurt by the loss of his love. She placed a comforting hand on his shoulder and said, "I'm so sorry, dear brother. Love can be a cruel mistress. But remember, why are you still doing that?" Okay. Well, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get to play with this today. But I will do some more work into my prompt crafting, and I will find a way to get it to let us do this at some point, because it's extremely fun to get to be a part of the story that the AI is writing with you, and not just prompt and response. But in the meantime, we will come up with some more interesting stories. How about tell me the story of Zeus's first meeting with and conversation with Hercules. Do not tell the actual story. I don't know if Zeus and Hercules ever talked to each other in mythology, but I assume they did. So we want to make sure we get a fake story. Once upon a time, there was a powerful king named Zeus. He ruled over the gods and mortals alike from his throne on Mount Olympus. One day, while he was out on a walk, he came across a young mortal prince named Hercules. Hercules was on a journey to prove himself as a hero and earn the respect of the people. Zeus was intrigued by the mortal's courage and determination and decided to approach him. "Greetings, young prince," Zeus said. "I am Zeus, the king of the gods. I see you are on a quest to become a hero. May I ask what drives you to undertake such a difficult task?" Hercules looked up at the powerful god and replied, "I wish to prove myself worthy of the love and respect of my people. I wish to be remembered as a hero, not just a prince." Zeus was impressed by the mortal's ambition and replied, "You have a noble goal, young prince. But be warned, the path to becoming a hero is not an easy one. It will require strength, courage, and determination." Hercules looked determined and replied, "I am ready for the challenge, my lord. I will not rest until I have proven myself a true hero." Zeus smiled and said, "I believe you have what it takes to succeed. Remember, I will be watching over you, and if you ever need my help, just call out my name. Good luck on your journey, Hercules." And with that, Zeus disappeared into the clouds, leaving Hercules to continue his quest. From that day on, Zeus kept a close eye on Hercules, watching as he battled monsters, completed impossible tasks, and ultimately earned the respect and admiration of his people. He was proud to call him his son and a true hero. Very nice. I don't know if that is an actual story in Greek mythology or not. I assume it isn't. I asked it not to be. What are some other interesting stories we could tell about Greek mythology? How about tell me the story of all the gods getting together to decide who would rule after, let's do discuss who would rule now that Zeus is dead. Once upon a time, the great king of the gods, Zeus, had passed away. The gods were in shock and grief, but they knew that they had to quickly choose a new ruler. They all gathered on Mount Olympus to discuss who would take Zeus's place. The first to speak was Poseidon, the god of the sea. He declared that he was the strongest and most powerful of the gods, and that he should be the one to rule. But many of the other gods disagreed, pointing out that while Poseidon was powerful, he was also rash and impulsive. Next, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, spoke up. She argued that she was the most capable and intelligent of the gods, and that she would be the greatest ruler. But again, many of the gods disagreed, saying that while Athena was smart, she was also cold and calculating. Hera, the queen of the gods, also put forth her own claim to the throne. She argued that as the wife of Zeus, she was the most experienced and qualified to rule, but many of the gods pointed out that Hera was often petty and vindictive. Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy, suggested that they should choose a ruler based on merit rather than strength or intelligence. He proposed that the gods should hold a series of contests to determine who would be the best ruler. The other gods liked this idea, and they quickly set to work organizing the contests. They decided that the winner of the contests would be the one who displayed the most wisdom, courage, strength, and compassion. The contests were fierce, and many gods fell by the wayside. But in the end it was Hermes, the messenger of the gods and patron of thieves, who emerged victorious. He had shown wisdom in his advice, courage in his actions, strength in his deeds, and compassion in his art. The other gods all agreed that Hermes was the best choice, and they crowned him the new king of the gods. From that day forward, Hermes ruled with fairness and justice, and the gods lived in peace and harmony. I was hoping for a little more combativeness in that. And again, I really don't like it. Every time the AI tells one of these sections about uh, one of the gods putting forth their claim to the throne, it bothers me that it explains what they say without giving the dialogue. Hmm. Tell me a story of the day Hera tried to kill Hermes and take the throne. Maybe not the day. Tell me about the incident in which, right? Because we want to narrow the scope as much as possible. We don't want the whole day. We just want the incident. Maybe that'll give us something interesting. Once upon a time, after the death of Zeus, the gods gathered on Mount Olympus to decide who would be the next ruler. They decided to hold a series of contests to determine who would be the greatest ruler. Hermes, the messenger god and patron of thieves, emerged victorious and was crowned the new king of the gods. However, not all the gods were happy with this decision. Hera, the queen of the gods, was furious. She believed that as the wife of Zeus, she was the most experienced and qualified to rule. She felt that her rightful place was on the throne, not Hermes. Hera began to scheme and plot against Hermes. She tried to undermine his authority by spreading rumors and lies about him to the other gods, but Hermes was wise and saw through her machinations. One day, while Hermes was out on a mission, Hera decided to take action. She summoned all the gods to a meeting on Mount Olympus and announced that she had proof that Hermes was not fit to rule. She presented a forged document claiming that it was a prophecy that Hermes would be overthrown by a mortal. The other gods were shocked and confused by the sudden turn of events. They didn't know who to believe. Hermes, who had just returned from his mission, was furious. He declared that Hera's accusations were false and that she was only trying to take the throne for herself. An argument broke out between Hermes and Hera, and the other gods became divided. Some believed Hermes, while others were swayed by Hera's words. The situation was becoming more and more tense, and it seemed that the war between the gods was imminent. Just as things were about to come to a head, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, stepped forward. She proposed that they should put the matter to a vote. The gods the gods all agreed, and they voted on whether Hermes would remain king or whether Hera should take the throne. In the end, the vote was in favor of Hermes. He retained the throne in the respect of the other gods. Hera was furious, but didn't want to provoke a civil war amongst the gods, so she had to accept it. From that day forward, Hermes ruled with fairness and justice, and the gods lived in peace and harmony. But Hera never forgot her ambition and always kept an eye on her stepson. So I put that she tried to kill him. This is obviously just the AI censoring itself and trying to remain as PG-13 as possible. So probably telling stories about murder isn't something that the AI wants to have happen. Sad. Who doesn't want a good story about gods murdering each other, right? Hmm. So these have been really basic, but honestly, we haven't tried to stylize these stories at all, right? We've just kind of let the AI do whatever. But I bet if we if we gave it a style that was from like a film, like for example, told it to write a story in the style of film noir or something like that, it would probably do a better job of including dialogue as a part of the story. So let's try. Tell me a story about Theseus and Aphrodite meeting for the first time in a film noir style. Let's see what happens. Could be interesting. Might not be interesting at all. It was a dark and stormy night in ancient Athens. Theseus, the prince of Athens, was out on the town, trying to shake off the feeling of ennui that had been plaguing him for days. He found himself wandering the streets, not really paying attention to where he was going. As he was walking, he heard a soft, seductive voice calling his name. He turned around and saw a woman standing in the shadows, her face obscured by the darkness. She stepped forward, and Theseus saw it was Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. "Hello, Theseus," she said, her voice like honey. "I've been watching you, and I think we could be very good together." Theseus was taken aback. He had never met a goddess before, and he wasn't sure what to say. But something about Aphrodite's alluring presence drew him in. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low and husky. Aphrodite stepped closer, and Theseus could feel the heat emanating from her body. "I mean that I can give you everything you desire," she said. "All the love, all the passion, all the pleasure you can handle. All you have to do is let me in." Theseus was torn. Part of him was skeptical of Aphrodite's offer, but another part of him was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. He knew that getting involved with the goddess was dangerous, but he couldn't help feeling a thrill of excitement at the thought of what she could offer. "I'll think about it," he said, trying to play it cool. Aphrodite smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I'll be waiting," she said, and then she vanished into the night. Theseus was left alone in the darkness, his mind racing with thoughts of love and desire. He knew that he was in over his head, but he couldn't stop feeling that this was the beginning of something special. He had a feeling that his life would never again be the same after this encounter with the goddess of love. As he walked back home, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched, this feeling of a woman's gaze following him all the way home in a film noir style. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was beautiful. In a film noir style. Oh, sometimes this AI is funny in the same way that having a conversation with a kid is funny. Because they take things extremely, extremely literally, and so does the AI, because it doesn't really understand what you're trying to get at. But I really like this idea of getting it to tell the story in the style of a movie. I think, we get this wonderful layout of the description of the setting. We get much, much better dialogue because it's being written specifically for something to be filmed. I think this is a great, great way to get it to come out like a better, like a more readable story, and not just this history lesson. Because that's a lot of what you get if you just punch something in. Maybe we might not even have to do in a film noir style. We might just be able to do in a film style, and that would prevent constantly having to deal with, it was a dark and stormy night, because film noir stuff's always going to end up being kind of this dark, brooding sort of a feel, and you don't necessarily want every story to feel that way. Tell me the story about. What's another story we could try in just a film style? Ares, the god of war. Ares and Athena having some sort of clash, right? Because the god of war and the goddess of warfare. Of Ares and Athena arguing over battle plans in a film style. The story is set during a time of war in ancient Greece. Ares, the god of war, and Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, are in a heated argument over battle plans. The scene opens with Ares dressed in his full battle armor, pacing back and forth in front of a map of the battlefield. He is clearly agitated, and his voice booms as he speaks. "We must strike now, while our enemies are unprepared. We must take the offensive and crush them before they even know what hit them." Athena, dressed in her full armor and carrying her shield, enters the room. She is calm and measured in her approach, but her voice is firm as she speaks. Athena: "Ares, your impulsiveness will be our downfall. We must have a well thought out plan, one that takes into account the strengths and weaknesses of our enemy, a plan that ensures the safety of our own soldiers." Ares sneers at Athena. "Safety? This is war, not a game. We must strike now before our enemies have a chance to regroup." Athena, her voice growing louder: "And if we strike now, without a plan, we risk losing everything. We must be strategic in our approach. Trust me, I have fought many battles, and I know what works and what doesn't." Ares, his face contorted in anger: "You may have fought in battles, but you have never truly understood the thrill of war. The rush of victory is what drives us to greatness." Athena, her voice now at a shout: "And it is that very rush that will lead to our downfall. We must be smart and calculated in our approach. We must think before we act." The two gods continued to argue, their voices growing louder and more heated. But as the argument continues, they begin to see each other's point of view. They they realize that Ares' impulsiveness could be balanced with Athena's strategic thinking, and together they could come up with a battle plan that would ensure victory to their army. The scene ends with Ares and Athena standing side by side, studying the map of the battlefield together, planning their next move. The end. Interesting. I like that it lays everything out, that it gives a much better description of, for example, what the characters are wearing. I don't necessarily like. I mean, it talks about a scene and stuff like that, and that's kind of interesting. But I liked better when we put it into the film noir style. It didn't have all that stuff. It was as if it was writing a book, in the same generalized style of a film. a noir film, not that it was trying to write a screenplay. But still very interesting. Hmm. Well, that puts us at about an hour. And I think probably the streams are going to end up being about this short in the future because we're just trying to get some stories in, trying to tell some stories, read some stories. I imagine that anything too much longer than this would be fairly off putting to people who are going to be watching later because most of my views come from people coming to watch the videos after they've already been live. So I think we'll try and keep them at about this length, and we'll try and keep them as story dense as possible in the future. And I will look into a better way to get it to do the back and forth prompting with me. And then maybe in the future we can have people who are in the chat in the live stream actually giving responses and playing some of the characters. Maybe we can even get it to let us play a couple of characters. And we can tell stories that way, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. So thank you very much for stopping by again, J42. Um, Anybody who watches this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to help write or read along with the stories on the Discord for the Forever Adventures Library, join us in the Discord in the description. That is the project that sort of launched this YouTube, and we'd love to have you all there. Have a good day.